The night Harper Ellis knocked on my bedroom door wearing nothing but a pale blue robe and a look that could ruin a careful man, the entire city was under a heat advisory. That was the official reason. The unofficial reason was standing in my hallway at 11:43 p.m., barefoot, hair twisted up with a pencil, cheeks pink from the heat, saying, "My AC just made a noise like a dying lawnmower and quit. Can I sleep in here tonight?" I was 26 years old enough to know better, young enough to still have my brain short circuit when a woman I'd been trying very hard not to want asked to share my room. My room? I said. Like there were several rooms in my room and I needed clarification. Harper lifted one eyebrow. Unless you've secretly installed central air in the pantry. For context, I'm Ethan Parker. I worked as a video editor for a sports media company, which meant I spent most days in a dark room making other men's victories look dramatic. I lived in a two-bedroom apartment on the third floor of an old brick building in Louisville, Kentucky, with unreliable plumbing, beautiful windows, and exactly one working window AC unit. Mine. Harper had moved in 4 months earlier after my previous roommate left to live with his girlfriend and their aggressively ugly dog. She was 25, a pastry chef at a boutique hotel downtown, and the kind of person who could make toast look intentional. She woke up at 4 in the morning, came home smelling like vanilla and espresso, and had this habit of singing under her breath when she thought no one could hear. I heard. Too often. And because I was not completely stupid, I had spent the last 4 months pretending I didn't notice the curve of her smile when she teased me, or the way she leaned against the kitchen counter in old t-shirts, or how quiet the apartment felt on nights she worked late. We had rules. Not written rules, worse, adult rules, polite rules, separate groceries, separate bathrooms, separate lives, no weirdness, no dating roommates, no becoming a cautionary tale told by friends over drinks. I was good at rules, I liked rules. Rules had kept my life stable after a breakup that had left me sleeping on my brother's couch and pretending I was focused on work, when really I was just embarrassed that I'd built a future around someone who packed it into 3 cardboard boxes and left. So when Harper stood at my door in that robe, asking to sleep in my room, every responsible part of me said, "Be normal." Unfortunately, every other part of me had eyes. I glanced past her toward the living room, where the heat shimmered off the old hardwood like the apartment was trying to become soup. "Your AC is really dead?" I asked. She gave me a flat look. "No, Ethan. I dressed like a haunted spa guest and came to your door at midnight because I'm bored." "That's a pretty specific hobby. I contain multitudes." A drop of sweat slid down the side of her neck, and I had to look at the doorframe like it had suddenly become fascinating. "Okay," I said. "Yeah, of course, you can sleep in here." Her expression softened so fast it caught me off guard. "Thank you," she said, quieter. That was the thing about Harper. She could joke like nothing touched her, but sometimes her voice changed just half an inch, and you could hear the tired underneath. I stepped back to let her in. My room was not prepared for female inspection. There was a stack of clean laundry on the chair, 2 camera batteries charging on my desk, and a half-empty glass of water on the nightstand. The AC rattled in the window like a tiny determined airplane, but the room was cool enough that Harper closed her eyes when she crossed the threshold. "Oh my gosh," she whispered. "I could marry this air." "Please don't. It's loud, unreliable, and leaks sometimes." "So my type." I laughed before I could stop myself. She smiled at that, not her kitchen counter smirk, a real smile. The kind that made my chest feel like someone had opened a window inside it. Then we both looked at the bed. One bed. Queen-sized, technically, in the way that a parking space is technically big enough if everyone involved lies to themselves. "I can take the floor," I said immediately. Harper turned to me. "Ethan, your floor has editing cables, a dumbbell, and what I'm pretty sure is a fossilized tortilla chip. That chip has been with me through hard times. I'm not making you sleep on the floor in your own room. I'm not making you sleep in a heat stroke sauna. I didn't ask you to martyr yourself. I asked if I could sleep in here." The words hung there. In here. Not in the apartment. Not near the AC in here. She seemed to realize it at the same time I did because she looked away and tightened the belt of her robe. Sorry, she said. That sounded less weird in my head. It's okay. It's just. She exhaled and sat carefully on the edge of my bed, hands folded between her knees. I have to be up at 3:30. We're doing a wedding brunch for 80 people, and if I don't sleep at least a little, I'm going to frost someone's cake with rage. That would be memorable. The bride is already scared of me, as she should be. Harper laughed softly, then rubbed one hand over her face. She looked smaller suddenly, not weak, just worn down, like the heat had melted the armor she usually wore. I grabbed the clean t-shirt from the laundry chair and tossed it over my desk, pretending I wasn't aware of her sitting on my bed. You can have the left side, I said. It's closer to the AC. What about you? I'll take the right. Her eyes flicked up to mine. You sure? No. Yeah. She studied me for a second too long. You always do that. Do what? Act like things don't cost you anything. I leaned against the desk, suddenly less sure what to do with my hands. It's a side of a bed, Harper, not a kidney. You know what I mean. I did. And I hated that she noticed. Most people liked the edited version of me. Easygoing Ethan, helpful Ethan, the guy who didn't make things complicated. Harper apparently had been watching the raw footage. I tried to smile. Maybe I'm just generous. Maybe. Her gaze dropped for a second and then came back warmer. Or maybe you think if you never ask for anything, nobody can disappoint you. The AC hummed. Somewhere outside, a car alarm chirped once and stopped. That's a lot to get from a mattress negotiation, I said. I'm a pastry chef. I read cracks for a living. In dough. In people, too. That should have made me uncomfortable, it did, but it also made something in me loosen. I opened the top drawer of my dresser and pulled out a pair of old basketball shorts and another t-shirt. Here, I said, if you want something cooler than the robe. She took them, fingers brushing mine. It was nothing, barely a touch. Still, the room changed. Her hand paused against mine for half a second longer than necessary, and when she looked up, the teasing was gone from her face. Thanks, she said. I nodded like a man who remembered how breathing worked. She disappeared into my bathroom to change, and I stood in the middle of my room staring at the closed door. This was a bad idea. Not because Harper wasn't trustworthy, she was. Not because I didn't trust myself. I did, mostly. But because there are moments in life when a line doesn't get crossed all at once. It gets softened, blurred, stepped over accidentally while both people pretend they're still on the safe side. The bathroom door opened. Harper came out wearing my gray t-shirt and black shorts, her hair falling loose now around her shoulders. The shirt hung off one side, exposing the narrow line of her collarbone. She looked at me and tugged at the hem. Don't say it, she warned. I wasn't going to. You had a face. I have several faces. That one was definitely a face. I swallowed a smile. It's just weird seeing you in my clothes. Her expression shifted. Bad weird? There it was again. That tiny opening. I could have made a joke. I almost did. Instead, I said, no, not bad weird. Her eyes held mine. Then the power went out. The AC died mid-rattle. The room dropped into black silence, thick and sudden. From somewhere down the block, people groaned out windows. A dog barked. The heat, waiting outside the walls, seemed to press its hands against the glass. Harper whispered, "You have got to be kidding me." I reached for my phone on the nightstand, but before my fingers found it, Harper's hand found my wrist. Not grabbing. Just there. Warm. Steady. Deliberate. "Ethan," she said in the dark, so softly I almost didn't hear it. "Can I be honest?" My heart kicked once. "Yeah," I said. Her thumb moved against my wrist. I didn't only knock because of the AC. For a second, I thought the heat had finally cooked my brain. The room was black except for the faint orange glow from the streetlights bleeding through my curtains. Harper's fingers circled my wrist, light but unmistakable, and the words she'd just said seemed to hover between us. I didn't only knock because of the AC. I found my phone and turned on the flashlight, angling it toward the ceiling so it lit the room softly instead of blasting us both in the face. Harper blinked in the dim light. My t-shirt had slipped farther off her shoulder and her hair was a mess from the humidity. She looked nervous. Harper never looked nervous. "What do you mean?" I asked. She let go of my wrist and rubbed her palms over her thighs. "I mean, yes, my AC died. Obviously. And yes, your room was cooler for approximately 47 glorious seconds before the universe betrayed me." Rude universe. Deeply rude. She tried to smile, but it didn't stick. "But I could have slept on the couch, or taken a cold shower, or gone to my sister's. You have a sister in town? In Jeffersonville, with 3 kids under 7 and a husband who snores like a motorcycle trying to start in winter." "Fair." She looked down. "I came here because I wanted to." My pulse went from normal to unreasonable. "Here is in my room," I said carefully. Her mouth curved. "There are those clarification skills again. I'm just trying not to misunderstand you. Maybe I want you to misunderstand me a little." That should have been funny. It was funny. But her voice had gone soft around the edges, and my body responded to that softness like it was a hand at the back of my neck. I sat on the bed, leaving space between us. Responsible space. Mature space. Enough room for good judgment to sit down and supervise. Harper glanced at it. "That gap is very respectful. I'm a respectful guy. It's practically a moat. I can add decorative fish." She laughed and the sound loosened something in the dark. Outside, someone shouted about the power company. A car rolled by slowly, bass thumping. The whole building creaked and sighed, settling into the blackout. Harper leaned back on her hands. "Do you remember the first week I moved in?" "Sure." "You labeled the kitchen shelves. You kept putting cinnamon cereal next to garlic powder. It felt dangerous. You also left me a note on the coffee maker that said, 'This machine sounds possessed, but it makes decent coffee if you threaten it first.' That's still true." I saved that note. I looked at her. "You what?" She shrugged, trying to make it casual and failing. "It was funny. You saved a note about an appliance exorcism?" "I had just moved into a stranger's apartment after the worst breakup of my life," she said. "Everything I owned was in boxes. I didn't know where my mugs were. I cried in my car outside the grocery store because I couldn't decide what kind of soup to buy." My chest tightened. She'd moved in smiling, carrying boxes, making jokes, telling me she traveled light because she was mysterious and efficient. I had believed the performance because it had been easier than looking too closely. "And then," she continued, "I came home and there was this stupid note on the coffee maker, like 'Welcome to the apartment. The equipment is haunted. Good luck.'" And I laughed. For the first time in days. "Harper." She looked at me then, and the vulnerability in her face hit harder than anything flirtatious could have. "So, yeah," she said, "I saved it." I didn't know what to do with that, with being someone's small, saved thing. "I didn't know," I said. "You weren't supposed to." She picked at a loose thread on the shorts. "I'm very cool and emotionally unavailable, remember?" "Right. Terrifyingly cool." "Exactly." The heat was creeping in without the AC. Sweat gathered at the back of my neck, and the air felt close, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with comfort. Harper shifted, and her knee brushed mine. Neither of us moved away. "You said worse breakup," I said. She gave me a sideways glance. "Is this where you ask me if I'm still in love with him?" "No." "Good." I was going to ask if he was stupid. That surprised a laugh out of her. "Extremely." "Then I'm caught up." She smiled at me, but it faded slowly. "He wasn't a villain. That almost made it worse. He just kept choosing everything else first. Work, friends, his image. The version of me that didn't need anything." Her voice dropped. "After a while, I started becoming that version because it was easier than asking for more and watching him resent me for it. I felt that in places I didn't expect." "I know something about that," I admitted. Her attention sharpened. "Your ex?" I nodded. "She didn't like neediness, hers or mine. We were together 2 years, and by the end I had turned myself into furniture. Useful, quiet, always there." Harper's knee pressed more firmly against mine. "I hate that," she said. "Me too, eventually." And now? Now I edit basketball highlights and label shelves. Hot, I laughed. That's what does it for you. Organization, competence, a man who knows where the paprika belongs, absolutely. You're easy to impress. No. Her eyes stayed on mine. I'm not. The room seemed to shrink around that. I could hear my own breathing. Hers too. Outside the window, the city sweated and complained, but inside my bedroom, everything had narrowed to Harper's bare knee against mine, and the way she was looking at me like she'd made a decision and was waiting to see if I'd be brave enough to meet her there. I've been trying not to notice you, I said. Her lips parted slightly. I hadn't planned to say it. It just came out, dragged into the open by darkness and heat and the weight of her honesty. She whispered, "How's that going?" "Badly." A smile touched her mouth. "Same." The word landed in my chest. Same. Not maybe, not a joke. Not roommate kindness dressed up as flirtation because the power was out and we were both tired. Same. I turned toward her. "Harper, if we start something..." "I know. We live together." "I know. It could get messy. I make croissants for a living. Messy doesn't scare me. This is different. Ethan." She shifted closer, the respectful moat officially drained. "I'm not asking you to promise me 10 years and a mortgage tonight. I'm saying I came to your door because it was hot and I was tired and I wanted to be near you. And that scared me enough that I almost went back to my room." My hand moved before my caution could stop it. I brushed a strand of hair off her cheek, slow enough that she could pull away. She didn't. Her eyes fluttered, then opened again, steady on mine. "I'm glad you didn't," I said. The corner of her mouth lifted. "Yeah? Yeah." Her fingers came to my chest, resting lightly over my heartbeat. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "Acting calm while your heart tells on you." I looked down at her hand on my shirt. Traitor. "I like it." I covered her hand with mine. It wasn't a kiss, not yet. But somehow it felt more dangerous. Her palm was warm under my hand, and she was close enough that I could smell faint sugar and lavender soap on her skin. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything." "If I lie down, are you going to balance on the edge of the bed all night like a Victorian gentleman afraid of ankles?" "Probably." "Don't." My throat went dry. She squeezed my hand once, then lay back on the left side of the bed facing me. An invitation. A challenge. I turned off the phone flashlight, leaving us in the dim amber dark, and lay down beside her. For a moment, we stayed inches apart, not touching except for our hands still linked between us. Then Harper whispered, "This is better than the couch? Even without AC? Especially without AC. That sounds medically questionable. It's romantic. It's 90 degrees. Romance requires suffering." I smiled into the dark. "That explains a lot of poetry." She laughed softly, then rolled closer until her forehead rested against my shoulder. Every thought in my head went still. I lifted our joined hands and kissed her knuckles. Small. Careful. Chosen. Harper went quiet. Then she tilted her face up, close enough that I felt her breath against my jaw. "Ethan?" "Yeah." "Next time, don't stop at my hand." Before I could answer, a bright flash of lightning lit the room white. A second later, thunder cracked over the building. Harper startled against me, then laughed breathlessly, her fingers tightening in my shirt. "Okay," she whispered. "Maybe the universe is dramatic, but its timing is excellent." The thunder rolled away, leaving the room darker than before. Harper's hand was still twisted in my shirt. Her forehead hovered near my jaw, her breath warm against my skin, and every sensible thought I'd ever owned had quietly left the apartment. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Absolutely," she said, not moving. "I only attacked your t-shirt because I respect cotton." "Cotton appreciates that." She laughed, but the sound faded when I turned my head. We were close. Too close for pretending. Close enough that if either one of us shifted half an inch, the decision would be made for us. So I made it on purpose. I lifted my hand to her cheek. "Harper." Her eyes searched mine in the dim. "Yeah?" "I'm going to kiss you now unless you tell me not to." For one suspended second, she just looked at me. Then she whispered, "If you don't, I'm moving out." I laughed once, helplessly, and then my mouth was on hers. The kiss started careful. A question. A warm brush of lips in the dark, gentle enough that we could still retreat and pretend we'd only been lonely in a blackout. Harper did not retreat. She made this soft sound in the back of her throat, slid her hand from my shirt to the side of my neck, and kissed me like she'd been waiting longer than one night. Like maybe all those mornings passing each other in the kitchen, all those jokes over burnt coffee, all those almost touches near the sink had been gathering here. I shifted closer. Her knee fit between mine, and the heat outside became irrelevant. There was only her mouth, her fingers in my hair, the faint sweetness of her skin. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathing harder. Harper kept her eyes closed. Okay, I smiled. Okay? That was... She opened her eyes, and even in the dark I could see the dazed shine in them. Very bad for the roommate agreement. We never signed anything. I initialed it emotionally. That won't hold up in court. I know a lawyer who likes macarons. I know a pastry chef who bribes officers of the court. Her smile curved against my mouth before she kissed me again. The second kiss was less cautious, still tender, but with more truth in it. Her fingers tugged lightly at my hair, and I rolled onto my side, one arm braced above her so I wouldn't crush her. She traced the line of my shoulder like she was memorizing proof. Then, just as my hand settled at her waist, she pulled back. Not far. Just enough. Wait, she whispered. I went still immediately. Yeah, of course. Her eyes softened at how fast I stopped. That look alone nearly undid me. I don't want to rush because it's dark and hot and we're both sleep deprived, she said. Agreed. And I don't want this to be one of those things where tomorrow we decide it was a weird storm accident. I swallowed. It's not. You sure? Yes. I didn't say it because I thought she needed convincing. I said it because she deserved certainty. Harper studied me. I need words, Ethan, not edited highlights. That made me smile a little, even with my heart knocking against my ribs. Okay, I said. I want you, not just tonight. Not because your AC died. I've wanted to take you to dinner since the day you argued with that guy in the grocery store about peaches. She blinked. You remember that? You called him a produce pessimist. He was squeezing them like stress balls. You were very passionate. I care about stone fruit. I know. I brushed my thumb along her cheek. That's the problem. You care about everything like that. Peaches, wedding cakes, haunted coffee makers. People who pretend they don't need much. Her teasing expression vanished. I kept going before I could lose my nerve. I don't want to be your roommate who kissed you during a blackout. I want to be the guy who takes you out when the lights are on. Harper went quiet. For one terrible second, I thought I'd said too much. Then she touched my face so gently it hurt. There you are, she whispered. What? The part of you that asks. My chest tightened. She leaned up and kissed me once. Slow, deliberate. A promise more than a spark. Yes, she said against my mouth. Yes? Yes, I want dinner. Yes, I want you when the lights are on. And yes, I still want to sleep in here tonight, but maybe with slightly fewer Victorian bed edge maneuvers. Relief hit me so hard I laughed. She grinned. There he is. I settled beside her again, closer this time, not tangled in a way that demanded more. Just close enough that her shoulder rested against my chest and my arm curved around her waist. The storm kept muttering outside. Rain finally began to fall, hard and sudden, tapping against the window screen and hissing on the hot pavement below. Without the AC, the room was still warm, but Harper relaxed against me like the whole apartment had cooled. After a while, she said, For our date, I have conditions. Already? I'm a woman of standards. I'm listening. No sports bar. Reasonable. No place where the menu uses the word elevated more than twice. Also reasonable. And you cannot let me talk about work the entire time. That one may be difficult. You once spent 14 minutes explaining butter temperature. It matters. I know it matters. I was riveted. She tilted her head back. Were you? I looked down at her. Yes. Her expression changed again, as if she still wasn't used to being believed in small things. Then you can talk about your work too, she said. Not the easy version, the real one. The real one has a lot of complaints about file formats. I can handle it. And unreasonable clients. I frost rage cakes, try me. I smiled and pressed a kiss to her temple. She sighed, sinking into me. You keep doing that and I'm going to become unbearable. You already labeled yourself terrifyingly cool. That's different. This is cuddly power. Sounds dangerous? It is. I might start leaving my mugs in your cabinet. Too far. She laughed, then went quiet. The silence after wasn't awkward. It was full. The kind that settles after something honest has finally been said. I thought she might fall asleep, but a few minutes later she whispered, "Can I ask one more thing? Anything. If this gets complicated, don't disappear into being nice." I knew exactly what she meant. Nice Ethan. Easy Ethan. The man who smiled while slowly evacuating himself from the room. "I won't," I said. "Promise?" I took her hand under the sheet and laced our fingers together. "I promise I'll tell you the truth, even if I do it badly." She squeezed my hand. "Good. I can work with badly." That's encouraging. I make pastry. Half the job is rescuing things that collapsed. So I'm a soufflé now? A very handsome, emotionally evasive soufflé. I laughed into her hair. That may be the best compliment I've ever gotten. It was an assessment. Even better. The power clicked back on at 2:18 a.m. The AC coughed, rattled, and roared to life like an old beast waking from a grudge. Cold air spilled into the room. Harper lifted her head, eyes sleepy. "My fiancé. Again, please don't marry the AC. She provides. I provided the bed. You provided a lot more than that." The softness in her voice reached straight through me. I kissed her forehead, then paused. "Sleep. You have to be up soon." She groaned. "Don't remind me. Wedding brunch for 80 people. 79 if the bride looks at me wrong. Harper. Fine, 80. She curled into me again, and within minutes her breathing evened out. I didn't sleep right away. I lay there with Harper in my arms, listening to the AC rattle and the rain fade, feeling the strange, terrifying relief of having crossed a line and found her waiting on the other side. At 3:30 her alarm chirped from somewhere on the floor. Harper stirred, muttered something hateful about capitalism, and reached blindly for her phone. I grabbed it first and silenced it. Her eyes opened to slits. "If you tell me good morning, I'll end you." "It's an okay morning." She smiled despite herself. Then she seemed to remember where she was, who she was lying against, what had happened. For a second, uncertainty flickered across her face. I kissed her hand before it could take root. "Dinner," I said. Her smile came, back, slow and real. "Dinner," she agreed. "And Ethan?" "Yeah?" She leaned up, kissed me once, sleepy, sweet, devastating, and whispered, "Don't make me wait until the lights are on for the next one." Harper left for work wearing my t-shirt under her robe because, in her words, "I'm not giving it back until negotiations." "What negotiations?" I asked from the bed, still half asleep and entirely ruined by the sight of her in the doorway. She pointed at me with one finger. "Terms of surrender." I didn't know we were at war. We're roommates who kissed during a blackout. Obviously, there will be treaties. Do I need a lawyer? You need coffee and a dinner reservation. Then she crossed the room, bent down, and kissed me. Not a shy kiss. Not a "was last night real?" kiss. A firm, warm, pre-dawn kiss that tasted faintly like mint toothpaste and certainty. When she pulled back, my hand had somehow found her waist. Harper smiled against my mouth. "Good, just checking." "Checking what?" "That I didn't dream you." Something in my chest went soft and stupid. "You didn't," I said. Her smile gentled. "Okay." Then she was gone, the apartment door clicking shut behind her at 3:48 a.m., leaving me staring at the ceiling like a man who had been handed a winning lottery ticket and immediately worried about taxes. I slept another 2 hours, badly. By the time I shuffled into the kitchen, the apartment looked innocent. Sunlight poured through the windows. The power was on. The AC in Harper's room remained dead, but mine grumbled heroically down the hall. There was no evidence that my life had tilted in the dark except for one thing: a sticky note on the coffee maker. I knew this machine was possessed. You looked brave last night. Don't let it go to your head. I stood there grinning at a piece of paper like an idiot. Then I opened the cabinet for a mug and found all of Harper's mugs on my shelf. Every single one, including the yellow one shaped like a lemon. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the counter. At noon, she texted me a photo of 80 miniature tartlets lined up like obedient soldiers. Harper, no casualties yet. Bride survived. Me, proud of you both. Harper, don't get attached to the bride, but she called lemon curd too assertive. Me, monster. Harper, dinner tonight? Me, yes. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Harper, is this going to be weird? I looked at the question for a long moment. The easy answer was no, the honest answer was better. Me, probably for 5 minutes. Then you'll insult my menu choice and we'll be fine. Harper, I do enjoy insulting you. Me, I know, it's one of your love languages. The word sat there after I sent it. Love. Too soon, obviously. Careless thumb, traitorous heart. I almost typed a correction. Something charming. Something safe. Before I could, her reply came. Harper. One of them, yes. I put the phone face down and stared at the wall. 5 minutes later, I made a reservation. Not a sports bar, not elevated. A small Italian place on a side street with red awnings, cold white wine, and a menu that did not try to reinvent tomatoes. It was the kind of place I'd passed a dozen times and never had a reason to enter. Now I had one. Harper got home at 6 with flour in her hair and exhaustion in every line of her body. I was in the living room, pretending not to be waiting. She stopped just inside the door. Why are you standing like that? Like what? Like a golden retriever who learned taxes are real. I made a reservation. Her face changed, tired to lit. It happened so fast I felt it. You did? 7:30. She dropped her bag. Ethan Parker, decisive man of action. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm delighted and suspicious. You said no sports bar. I did. And no excessive elevation. A crucial boundary. So I chose pasta. Her hand went to her heart. He listens. I've been known to. She looked at me then, really looked, and the joking faded into something quieter. I noticed, she said. The space between us pulled tight. I crossed it first. It felt important that I did. Not because she needed me to rescue anything, because I wanted her, and I was done making her do all the brave reaching. I stopped in front of her, close enough to see the tiny smear of sugar near her jaw. You have flour in your hair, I said. I was attacked by a Danish. Tragic. Violent profession. I brushed the flour from a dark strand near her temple. My fingers lingered. Her eyes softened. Then I kissed the sugar from her jaw. Harper went completely still. When I pulled back, her cheeks had turned pink. That, she said faintly, was not in the roommate handbook. I'm revising the handbook. With your mouth? Mostly. She laughed, then caught the front of my shirt and kissed me properly in the middle of the living room, her bag on the floor, her work shoes still on, the apartment warm and sunlit and no blackout available to blame. It was slower than last night, less desperate, somehow more intimate. We weren't hiding in darkness or half asleep. We were choosing it at 6:07 on a Tuesday, with dishes in the sink and a dead AC unit in the next room. When she broke the kiss, her forehead rested against mine. Okay, she whispered. Not weird anymore. Told you, 5 minutes. That was definitely under 5. I'm efficient. Add it to your dating profile. I'm hoping not to need one. Her eyes lifted to mine. There it was. The risk. The little edge under the banter. I touched her cheek. I mean it. I know, she said, but her voice wavered. Harper. I know. She closed her eyes briefly. That's the scary part. So I told her the truth badly, like I'd promised. I'm scared too, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe pretending I don't want this. She opened her eyes. For once, she didn't joke. She just nodded and kissed me again, softer this time. At 7:30, we sat across from each other under a red awning while the city still sweated from the heat wave. Harper wore a green sundress I'd never seen before, and I spent at least 30% of the meal forgetting how to use a fork. Your face, she said after catching me staring for the third time. I have several. That one is loud. What's it saying? She leaned forward, chin in her hand. Candlelight caught the gold in her eyes. It's saying you like the dress. I do. How much? Enough that I'm considering writing it a thank you note. She smiled into her wine glass. Careful, I save notes. I'm counting on it. We talked about everything and nothing. Her first bakery job. My brother teaching me to drive in a church parking lot. The worst cake she'd ever made. The client who once asked me to edit sweat out of a basketball player's face. That's impossible, she said. I told him athletes sweat. Bold stance. I was younger then. Halfway through dessert, she reached across the table and took my hand. No joke, no cover, just her fingers sliding between mine while the waiter passed by and the world kept going. I like this, she said. Dessert? You know what I mean. I turned my hand over, holding hers properly. I like this too. Enough to risk the apartment? Enough to stop calling it a risk every time I get nervous. Her thumb brushed mine. That was a very good answer. I practiced with the breadbasket. I could tell. The focaccia looked moved. After dinner, we walked home slowly, shoulder to shoulder. The heat had softened into something bearable. At a crosswalk, Harper slipped her hand into mine like it belonged there, and I felt embarrassingly close to happy. Outside our building, she stopped. What? I asked. She looked up at the third-floor windows. Once we go in, it's our apartment again. Yeah. And tomorrow there will be AC repair calls and rent and whose turn it is to buy paper towels. Yours. Incorrect. I smiled, but she didn't. So before that, she said, I want one more date thing. What kind of date thing? She stepped closer, rose on her toes, and kissed me under the broken porch light. I wrapped an arm around her waist and kissed her back, slow enough to make the street disappear. When she lowered to her heels, she looked a little breathless. That kind, she said. Good choice. Upstairs, the hallway was hot and dim. We were still holding hands when we reached our door. Then Harper's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her smile faltered. What is it? I asked. She turned the screen slightly. A message from her. Building maintenance app. AC repair delayed until Friday. Below it, another notification from her sister. You can stay with us if the apartment's unbearable. Might be easier than making things complicated with your roommate. Harper looked at me, caught between amusement and worry. I squeezed her hand. Complicated? I said. She raised an eyebrow. Very. Worth it? Her fingers tightened around mine. Very, she said. The thing about choosing complicated is that complicated immediately starts asking practical questions, like where Harper was supposed to sleep when her bedroom had become a brick oven, or whether I was allowed to kiss her goodnight if we were both technically going to the same apartment, or why at 10:12 p.m. she was standing in my doorway again, arms crossed, wearing my gray t-shirt and a pair of sleep shorts, looking far too pleased with herself. Maintenance says Friday, she said. I heard. My room is currently suitable for slow roasting vegetables. Tragic for the vegetables. So, she rocked back on her heels. We need rules. I leaned against my dresser. I thought you hated the roommate handbook. I hate outdated policy. I support reform. Okay, rule 1. No pretending this is only because of the AC. I smiled. Agreed. Rule 2, if either of us gets weird, we say we're weird. That's going to involve you admitting you're weird. I contain multitudes, remember? Right. Her expression softened. Rule 3, I sleep on the left side. That's not a relationship rule, that's a hostile takeover. It's closest to the AC. You're using me for my climate control. I'm also using you for your mouth. I choked on absolutely nothing. Harper's grin was wicked and proud. Too much? Not enough warning. I'll make a note. She came closer then, and the teasing faded as she reached for my hand. Seriously, she said, if you want me to go to my sister's, say it. I won't be mad. There it was. The last open door to safety, the chance to be noble and careful and lonely. I took her other hand too. I don't want you to go. Her eyes searched mine. I want you here, I said. Not because it's easy, not because the AC is broken, because I like waking up next to you, because I like that your mugs invaded my cabinet, because I've spent 4 months trying to make this apartment feel neutral when it turns out I wanted it to feel like us. Harper went very still. Then she whispered, "That was not badly. Don't get used to it." "Oh, I'm absolutely getting used to it." She kissed me like she meant to seal every rule we'd made. That week, we learned a lot about each other. Harper learned I talked in my sleep when I was stressed, mostly about corrupted video files. I learned she set 12 alarms and ignored 11 of them with impressive contempt. She learned I could make eggs 3 different ways. I learned she considered breakfast for dinner a sacred institution. We also learned that sharing a bed before you'd figured out what you were to each other was less dangerous than never saying what you wanted. On Friday morning, maintenance finally fixed her AC. The repairman left at noon. Harper stood in the doorway of her newly cooled room, arms folded, staring at the humming unit like it had personally betrayed the plot. "Well," she said, "this is awkward." I looked over her shoulder. "Congratulations. You have air." "I do." "Great." "Fantastic." We stood there in silence, then Harper turned slowly to me. "Are you going to invite me to sleep in your room tonight, or am I supposed to suffer the indignity of asking?" I tried to keep a straight face. "But your AC works." "Yes, Ethan, that is the conflict." I stepped closer. "Harper Ellis, would you like to sleep in my room tonight for reasons entirely unrelated to temperature?" Her smile bloomed, bright and relieved. "I thought you'd never ask." By the end of the summer, nobody called it my room anymore. Her lemon mug stayed on my shelf. My spare charger lived on her nightstand. We fought once about closet space and twice about whether cinnamon cereal belonged near anything savory. We made up both times in the kitchen, once with apologies, once with kisses, and once with pancakes, so good neither of us remembered who had won. The first time she cried in front of me, really cried. It was over a wedding cake that collapsed 40 minutes before delivery. She came home furious and devastated, still smelling like sugar and panic, and tried to tell me she was fine. I didn't let nice Ethan take over. I said, "You're not fine. Come here." She did. She cried into my shirt, then yelled into a pillow, then let me drive her back to the hotel at midnight with a toolbox of frosting tips and a playlist she claimed was emotional support chaos. I sat on a flour-dusted stool while she rebuilt the cake tier by tier, brilliant and stubborn, and beautiful under fluorescent lights. At 3 in the morning, she looked over at me and said, "You know this is the least sexy date we've ever had." I held up a plastic container of emergency buttercream. "Speak for yourself." She laughed, and I knew I was gone. I don't mean infatuated. I don't mean dazzled, though I was that too. I mean gone in the steady way, the ordinary way, the way love stops being a lightning strike and becomes where you put your keys, who you text when something funny happens, whose tired face you want across from you at the end of every long day. 6 months after that heat wave, we moved into a 1-bedroom apartment with central air, a bigger kitchen, and windows that face the river. It was technically a little too expensive, but Harper said the oven had good energy, and I had learned not to argue with a woman who could read cracks in dough and people. On our first night there, surrounded by boxes, she taped the old coffee maker note to the fridge. "This machine sounds possessed, but it makes decent coffee if you threaten it first." Beside it, she added a new one. "This man sounds calm, but he loves loudly if you listen closely." I stood in front of the fridge and read it twice. Harper came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist, and rested her cheek against my back. "Too much?" she asked. I covered her hands with mine. "Not enough warning," I said, though my voice gave me away. She turned me around and kissed me in our new kitchen, barefoot among cardboard boxes, while the central air hummed quietly overhead like a blessing we no longer needed as an excuse. A year after that night, during the first heat wave of the next summer, our old building lost power again. We heard about it from a neighbor who still lived there. Harper read the text aloud while we were lying on the couch, her feet in my lap, a bowl of popcorn between us. "Third floor's melting," she said. "Poor souls. Should we send a fan? We should send them a warning." "What warning?" She looked at me over her phone, eyes shining. "Be careful whose door you knock on during a heat wave." I laughed, pulled her across the couch, and kissed her until the popcorn bowl tipped sideways and neither of us cared. Later, after we cleaned up, she stood in the doorway of our bedroom wearing that same pale blue robe from the first night. I hadn't seen it in months. My heart did the exact same stupid thing it had done back then. Harper smiled like she knew. "My AC died," she said solemnly. "We have central air." "Emotionally, Ethan." "Emotionally?" She nodded. "Can I sleep in here tonight?" I crossed the room and took her face in my hands. "Every night," I said. And the best part was that she believed me. What would you have done if your roommate's AC died in a heat wave and she showed up at your door in a robe asking to sleep in your room? Have you ever experienced something similar, where one small emergency changed everything between you and someone close? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.